Biggest game the National Football League has ever exported. Chiefs, Dolphins, are you kidding me? And Peter's on the scene. He's in Frankfurt, Germany. Shireen is in Texas. I'm in West Virginia. It's all being tied together through Connecticut. That's a point that Peter made during the break. And here we are live in real time. Peter, welcome. Good afternoon in Germany.
Yeah, guten Tag. The other weird part of it is that my camera is my iPhone. I mean, this is just the craziest world. And, to think that we're all sort of locked together, there's not a 14-second delay or anything. It's fun. Hey, but Mike and Shireen, I'll just give you one little quick note here from the practice field where the Dolphins, about 30 yards away from me, are going through their final workout. What is so interesting about being around Frankfurt the last couple of days is you simply cannot believe the number of Kansas City fans over here. It's 200 to 1. And I don't know what it's going to look like in the stadium on Sunday. But last year when I was in Munich, I'd say Seattle around town was maybe a little bit more fans, but it was 55-45. It's 99 to 1 here in favor of Kansas City. So who knows what it'll be, but that has really been kind of an overwhelming deal.
Peter, I want to ask you about the travel schedules of these two teams because the Dolphins were in Germany all week. The jet lag's gone. The Chiefs either have just arrived or arriving later today. We've seen it with these games. We've seen it this year with these games. The Ravens arrived early. The Titans arrived late. The Ravens won. The Jaguars had the edge on the late arriving Bills and won. So do the Dolphins have an edge in this game because they've been there all week? I know Andy Reid said they're following the 2015 plan when they beat the Lions in London, but it just feels like to me the Dolphins are going to have some type of edge having been there all week.
I think travel experts would say you're absolutely right, Shireen. But I also think that there have been some teams that have come over here leaving on Thursday after practice at their local facilities and coming over to Europe who have played very, very well. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure that athletes that are so incredibly, that are in such great shape, and who basically have been told for the last 2 weeks, okay, adjust your sleep patterns for the time change and things like that. Drink your tart cherry juice, all that kind of stuff. I think that that's not going to be a big deal, even though it looked like with the Ravens, when they came over really early, spent the week there, and, they took care of the Titans. But honestly, wouldn't the Ravens have beaten the Titans anyway, even if they showed up Friday night?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Talking to people basically on both sides before they made this trip, I heard the explanations for both teams, and Kansas City basically wanted to stay on their schedule. And look, as it turns out, with Patrick Mahomes getting over some bug or whatever, having gone to the World Series last Friday, so who knows, maybe getting back to Kansas City at 2:00 in the morning and then going to Denver that day and playing lousy. I'm sure, and I would bet you that Andy Reid is very happy that they said for the first 4 days of this week, we are staying home and staying in our own routine.
I mentioned earlier this is the biggest game the NFL has ever exported. Rams Chiefs in 2018 was supposed to be in Mexico City, but the field wasn't ready, and that classic ended up being played at the Coliseum. But we've got a lot of people that follow the show in the UK. And London has had NFL games every year, but for the pandemic year, since 2007. They have kissed a lot of frogs. They have eaten a lot of crap subs like Elaine Bennis. What do you say to folks in London who aren't getting this game? And what does it say about the way that Germany has taken to the NFL so quickly and, as far as I can tell from here, so zealously?
Well, Mike, I would argue that the NFL now has played 43 regular season games outside of the United States. And the 2 games in Germany are the 2 best that they've ever had. I mean, think about that. Last year, Tom Brady in his last season playing a game in Munich and playing the Seattle Seahawks. That was a good, competitive game with 2 teams that ended up making the playoffs. And now this game, this has the best combined winning percentage of 2 teams ever in the 43 game history of international football. I think what I would say to the people in England, and I totally get sort of their pain. However, the NFL, when it established the foreign home markets program, and you had every team basically say, okay, I want to take Germany, or I want to take Spain, I want to take Brazil as our home markets overseas. Originally, 4 teams took Germany, okay? And those 4 teams over the span of 3 years, all are going to play home games here. Next year, it'll be Carolina's turn. Nothing's been announced yet. They haven't made it official, but it'll be Carolina next year. And so I think I understand people not being happy about this, but essentially what has happened is NFL owners, for the first time in the last 3 or 4 years, are raising their hands, and they're saying, we want these international games. For years, when the NFL would have to get teams to agree to go to England, none of the really good teams traditionally wanted to go. The Green Bay Packers fought it forever until it became a rule. So I think that's one of the reasons. That's a very big reason why England has not had great games.
It sounds like, Peter, that Munich has taken up with the NFL just like Frankfurt has. What is it about Germany that they have fallen in love with the NFL and this has become such a big deal?
Shireen, I think it dates back to the old World League of American Football and then the World League. And they still have a pretty high semi-pro league over here. Jim Tom Sula coaches a team in Dusseldorf, which is a hotbed of American football. And he told me last year, he said to me, he goes, Patrick Mahomes coming to this country, Tom Brady coming to this country. It's like the Beatles coming to New York. And so I think because this place has had a 40-year tradition of being big-time supporters of American football, that's why you see, the great support over here. But Shireen, I'll just tell you one other thing. And this is sort of how I see it. Now, I'm not positive that stats would bear it out, but I want you to think about this. I think these are more European games with a German base. The same way in England, they're European games with a British base. And that's because people come. I mean, I know somebody, and I'm interviewed him for my column on Monday, who's coming from Zurich and getting on a train at 4:47 a.m. Sunday because this is his chance to see an American football game. And so when the supply is so limited, people go nuts for it. And that's what's happened over here.
I just had an idea. If they really want to embrace this, because we're seeing all the throwbacks now in the NFL because of the 2-helmet rule, the Oilers we saw over the weekend, even though it shouldn't be the Titans, it should be the Texans. I got an idea. They need to get a couple of NFL teams over there, like the Panthers. Like the Panthers don't really have an iconic helmet. Put them in the old Frankfurt Galaxy helmet. Do you remember the old Frankfurt Galaxy helmet?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Multicolored.
Let's get the old World League uniforms out there. We have the Frankfurt Galaxy helmet. If I talk about it long enough, it might show up. But, Peter, let me ask you this. We'll get it at some point. We'll get it before. We promise we'll get it before the segment ends. Tyreek Hill, biggest name in this game because of the crossover. Dolphins player now, was a Chiefs player. How do you see him being a factor the first time he's ever facing his old team?
I think it's going to be hard for him to not be overpumped in this game. He was here talking about it yesterday. basically played it down. It's just going to be a game, all that stuff. There's no way he can feel that way. He's got to feel like, I'll show them. And look, the ironic part of it is Tyreek Hill really had a chance to stay. Kansas City offered him a lot more money than we ever thought he would be offered. And honestly, I remember vividly talking to Drew Rosenhaus in March of 2022. Rosenhaus, Tyreek Hill's agent, he said, we were surprised at how much Kansas City's GM Brett Veach and coach Andy Reid stretched to try to make this happen. That's why I think, look, if Tyreek finds some way to be bitter over this, I don't think the bitterness is mutual, because I think Kansas City tried legitimately to sign him. And Mike, and I know that at the end of Tyreek Hill's time in Kansas City, the Chiefs were basically, hey, listen, thanks for everything. Here's the gold watch. We're going to move on. And obviously, because sometimes Tyreek Hill can be a difficult guy to be on your team. It's never difficult on Sunday because he's so great. But he's not the easiest guy sort of to get along with on many occasions the Chiefs found. And so Kansas City went out. What did they do? They won a Super Bowl without him. So I think part of that must have hurt Tyreek Hill. He's human. And so I think he will come out and really try to have the game of his life on Sunday.
Peter, I know the Raiders obviously aren't playing over there, but I'm just curious of your thoughts of what's happened to the Raiders this week with the firings of GM and coach, and now Aiden O'Connell playing. What does this do for the Raiders and the long-term future of the Raiders?
Well, I understand that Josh McDaniel and Dave Ziegler made an awful lot of mistakes in their short tenure with the Raiders. Very well publicized mistakes. So I don't say this in defense of them, but at some point you got to start looking at Mark Davis. He now has had 7 head coaches. I think Antonio Pierce is the 8th since his father died. And what's that, 11 years? And I just think 11 or 12 years. And at some point you have to say, gee, there's a common denominator in this. 2 team presidents resigning, or one getting fired, one resigning. And all of every couple of years, there's a monumental shakeup here. To me, this is really starting to be like, it's almost time for an intervention with Mark Davis. He's not going to sell the team, but I think that anybody, and look, I'm not saying this is all anyone's fault. But what I am saying is that I think the commonality in this is that Mark Davis has made what appear to be some bad decisions. And so that would be my first thing. I think my second thing is that when I was watching that game on Monday night and we saw all the gesticulations and helmet throwing and all that stuff by Davante Adams, totally understandable. But I also say, let's not make Jimmy Garoppolo the focus of every piece of criticism here. I mean, how much time did Jimmy Garoppolo have? That offensive line was, almost Giants-like. The way that Daniel Jones was getting just absolutely, snowed under for 5 weeks. So I understand wanting to make 2 people, Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, the total focus for this. But I think that's pretty short-sighted.
Peter, great work as always. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Safe travels. And be on the lookout for a Frankfurt Galaxy helmet. You never know where you might see one. And there it is.
Look at that.
It is beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
And an NFL team needs to wear
helmet.
the Frankfurt Galaxy helmets. It is. I loved it the first time I saw it back in 1991. All right, Peter. Thanks as always. Enjoy the game.
Okay.
And we'll be back with Show Me Something draft. We'll miss you, Peter, for the Show Me Something draft. Shireen and I will do it next here on PFT Live.
Show me.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.